So right now I've got some of my first row down, and my niche is going to be here, or roughly right in here. Depends on where my tile ends up ending. It looked kind of weird just because it's large format tile, not smaller tile. But basically, what I'm trying to do with the niche is the row where the bottom of my niche is going to be will be right here. So I'm stopping at the row below the row that goes up to my niche. So that way I can get my spacers in there. I can go ahead and mark out where the bottom of my niche is going to be. I have my plumb line here where the edge of my tile is going, so that is going to be one side of my niche. And then I don't want it super huge, so I'm just going to do 24 inches or 2 tiles wide for the niche. So I'll go over here. Figure out where my level line is. So here to here. And I'm not going to make this 24 inches high. Sometimes, depending on if there's smaller tile, I'll go ahead and make it to where the bottom row starts on the tile and the top row ends on the tile or starts again on the tile, full tile. But that's completely up to you, whatever you want to do. Then once I got my line here, they didn't want it 24 high, so I'm just gonna do something that works relatively well with large bottles, typically around that 15-16 inches tall, which I think is right about here, is going to be our best option for those. So we'll go ahead and that one, this one. That, and then the other thing that's really important so the other thing that's really important, I'll pause there for a second to go get this, but is to know how wide or how thick your board is that's going in there. 95% of the time you're going to be using 1/2 inch Kerdi board for your walls and pretty much any structural stuff or wall structural stuff. This bench I have down here, this is actually 1 inch Kerdi, thin setted to 2 inch Kerdi. It's held in by, I don't know if you can see it, but there's see it. It's too dark. Right there. So where I got the thin set all filled in, that is some supports for the bench there. And I've got 3 supports on that, so it's a floating bench. The reason the thickness is so important is because if this is how wide your bench is wanting to be, you need to go another 1/2 inch in from each one of these lines. So that way, at least a 1/2 inch. I like to go a little bit more, like 3/8, give myself another 1/8 for thin set buildup or waterproofing those edges. You'll get a little bit of buildup, so that way you do come out nice and even and flat with your tile that comes up to the edge of your niche. So you're gonna want to go in and about 5/8 from each one of your lines that you've created to allow for this to fit in here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. I'll just pause it real quick so that you can skip this part. So now I have my exterior lines made. So pretty much now all that's left to do to create the box you can do this with a utility blade or whatever you want to. I'm going to use multi-tool just because it's quick, easy, breezy, cover girl. And I guess the biggest thing, if you're going to use one of these guys, make sure there's no pipes or anything that you're going to damage behind your wall, because that could be problematic. So I'll go ahead and get this cut out here and then fast forward. So I've got it cut around. However, occasionally your screws, like I got one here and one down here, that one's not going to matter, but they don't, oh I guess that one doesn't matter, but they don't like to give way. You can bust that out if you want to, but I like to sometimes use it for the back just because it's wasting less material. But I'll go ahead and get those screws removed and then see if I can video me popping that out. So left side here, I had screws that I was running into. Maybe a bit of a problem because I think I'm running right on my stud. But we'll deal with that problem down the road. I just need to cut this up and then it should pop right off. Boom. Yeah, so like I was a little afraid of, this stud is kind of in the way, but I could cut it down somehow or do something there. I can do something to fix that. Insulation, rip it out. It's not going to benefit us any. So we just take that out. So close. So close to having it. It's so nice. Just an easy little niche, but that's okay. Like I said, normally you don't want to build on exterior walls, but with this, it is actually a wall and then a full wall in front of the exterior wall. So this is okay to build on because this is not a true exterior wall. This is your true exterior wall. But normally you don't want to build on an exterior wall. So like if we had these removed, I would not be building on this wall because I'd be going into this, and that would essentially, your niche could freeze, and then your grout and waterproofing and all that stuff could expand, contract a lot, and then crack, and then your waterproofing would fail, and you'd start getting leaks in your walls and water damage and just lots of bad stuff happening. So never build on an exterior wall with your niche. I'll get the rest of this insulation out and then kind of explain my next step. So one of two ways you can go about this is going from your bottom of the niche and top, both sides. You're going to either use a skill saw to just cut this straight off, and then you'd have to get in here with a miter and cut that down. Or you can just nip it in the butt, go down from this about 1.5 inches, whatever the thickness of your 2x4 is going to be, and cut it down there. And then that will be one of your bases, or base plates, whatever you want to call it. This might not actually be a true 2x4 wall. Might not be a true 2x4. Figure that out, I guess. We'll see. It's gonna suck, but okay. And then over here, where you got nothing, you can go ahead and just cut something that goes to that height, and drill. And then, yeah, drill into here, and just basically make a little box out of it. You know? Just make a little box out of it. Just drill into here. I'll get this cut out. I'll get some pieces cut, and then kind of show you how to frame it out at least. So I went ahead and I just cut this right here with the miter tool, up here with the miter tool. And so now I can just pop out this stud, which is actually 2 pieces because it's, like I said, not a full 2x4. So a little bit smaller than a 2x4. And now we have just basically framing left to do, and then waterproofing. So I got my side in here. I just screwed it into the face, and it's not perfectly solid, but it'll do the trick for now. Once I put the bottom and the top in, it'll really snug it up and be nice. I got my other board here. So now all I need to do is measure here to here, cut this down for both my top and bottom. I'll screw it into this stud here with some framing screws. And same thing with the top. And then I'll probably use the framing screws to screw it into here, here, and here. in each of my corners, and then waterproofing. Oh, well, and then I also will use, I just typically use plain drywall screws. There is galvanized steel screws that Schluter sells as well. I think they're galvanized steel. I could be wrong, but they're basically the same thing, just better rust-proof steel. But I've seen showers that aren't waterproof that the screws basically stay just fine for a long time. So, and then this also has waterproofing over this, the screws like that right there. You can see a little dimple, maybe not, but that's a screw that is waterproofed. But yep, I'll screw in some drywall screws or something into the side of the board just to keep this face here nice and snug up to the board, kind of like I did what I did here, but with these tops and bottoms. So now I have the bottom, sides, and top of the niche all framed in, and then I screwed along the face there, and it is pretty sturdy now. I did notice that I got a little gap there because my 2x4 I had on hand was not big enough, so it just, it's just gonna work with, it's gonna have to work with what I got. And now I'm gonna pretty much, this guy that I cut out, it can just slide right back in there, hopefully. Might need to trim it down a little bit, but ideally you can just go right back in. And then I could do my bottom, my sides, and my top, and then I'll do that with thin set, so that way I can show you, but I'll do it with thin set, so that way when it cures, it's going to be really solid and it's not going to move like this caulking and stuff that I'll use for my waterproofing on the outside. So go ahead and do that. So I have my pieces now that are cut for the sides and the top and the bottom, and so those will just fit in there like so. But what I'm going to do before I set them in there is I will take a little bit of thin set and I will just coat the studs, so that way it pretty much secures it to the studs nice and with a nice strong bond. And then I'll take more of the sheetrock screws, screw it in there so it's even more stable. And before I do any of that, or well, when I put it on, I'll show you. I'll kind of take a bead of silicone and put it on the end of this, and then so that way when I put it in there, it's going to make a seal along here, and then as well as after it's set and dried, I'll take and do a seal, and I'll probably just do one of those really quick, just to kind of show you an example of it before the thin set dries. Normally I would do it after the thin set dries, but I'll do it once before, so that way you have an idea of how to do it. And I'll do anywhere that there's a seam, or anywhere that there's not, or a scar or something in the waterproofing that has, it is basically a puncture point that can allow water through, is where I will put that silicone. So I'll put you back over here. ahead and do my thin set and stuff, and go from there. Watch that. Watch how it goes down. It doesn't really matter what size notch trowel you use, as long as you get some kind of thin set on there, it'll be fine. The biggest thing, especially for this bottom part, is making sure you get a slope on it. And what I mean by that is you want the water to shed from the back of the niche to the front of the niche. So you either do seating notch lines from the back to the front, or another thing I like to do sometimes is just take my board and I'll just put a little bit on the back so that it gives me a nice little bit of buffer there. This is probably more than enough thin set. Do what I need to do. And then, as I've seen before with the silicone, this is my back piece right here. I'm going to take and just add fairly nice thick bead all across here. Stuff does not like to come out very easily. And then, then I'll go ahead and insert it in here. Snugged up. Good. I like this little guy because it has markings on here that kind of show you level, eighth, quarter, 3/4, half inch, and that'll give you your slope. I think it's like basically like plumber's level or something like that. I'll just take that and I'll put it on here. Make sure I got 1/4 inch slope, which I got much more than that. I've got a 1/2 inch slope on here, so I can go ahead and put this tip up a little bit. That's pretty close to 1/4 inch. Even go up a little bit more if I wanted to. I don't want to go up too much because it might not, then my tile might not go up to the top here. I'll check the level this way. Good, pretty good, pretty good, pretty good. After I do that, I will make sure that tile goes relatively close to the top of that, and that is damn near perfect. I got about 1/16 inch maybe, 1/16 from the bottom of the, or the top of the tile to the bottom of the niche here where my foam starts, and that's like beautiful right there. So I'll go ahead and do the sides and the top, and then show you kind of how to finish waterproofing and sealing your niche here once I get those set.